Hello again, everybody. This is the Cybersecurity Graybeard once again coming at you. I have been posting these as YouTube videos as well as podcasts, and I did want to announce that this will be my last YouTube. I think these conversations are much better geared for quick podcasts than the video. If I do demos or things in the future, I may pop some out. But in the meantime, for my YouTube subscribers, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I hope you find these valuable. I encourage you to grab the podcast from your local podcast provider. I am on the main players, Google, Spotify, Buzzsprout, Podbean. You can actually go to cybergraybeard.buzzsprout.com. That's BUZZSPROUT.com, buzzsprout.com, and find my podcast as well. So sign up and pop in when I put these out periodically. It's looking like they're now every 2 to 3 weeks. I need content, so I'd love to hear from you. cybergraybeard@gmail.com. You can also visit my website at www.cybergraybeard.com and put comments in there or write to me. Today, it's more of a somber conversation, which I think is fair based off of what's happening in the world with COVID-19. It's a tragedy. It's tragic. It's affecting many people's lives. I personally have lost a family member. So it's not something to shirk at. And scary times. I have a degree in economics, actually, so I came into tech a little bit later, right out of college, actually. But in college, it was economics, so I'm very familiar with the finances and the business world and the economics and the cycles and history. And I'm a little bit more concerned about the economics that are going to come out of this than the healthcare. I see a lot of positive things with regards to, and here now on March 27th, some cures are coming out of France that have been tested in New York, whether it is a drug combo or whether it's plasma infusions, not to mention that there's so many companies worldwide that are looking at vaccines, and I'm comfortable and confident that we'll be through the healthcare scare here in the coming weeks or months. The economic is a little bit harder. One of my daughter's boyfriends actually was laid off yesterday. Somebody else close to me is also concerned for their position. And oddly and sadly, or whatever reason, I have a lot of experience with layoffs in my career. So I want to take this time and just tell you my stories, give you some solace and comfort, let you know, again, as I've been saying many times, is that you're not alone, and it doesn't matter if you're at the beginning of your career trying to find your first job, or if you're in the middle of your career, or you have it short term under your belt. It's scary, and fear is absolutely normal. There's a lack of control, and me personally, I like to control things. I'm not going to lie, it's one of my foibles, and sometimes I like to control them too much. And when it comes to layoffs in the job, there's very little that we as employees can do when things start to go sideways. So having fear and a lack of control, and the unknown, not knowing when you're going to be laid off. Are you going to be laid off? Is the company going to do layoffs? Are there other actions that are going to be taken? And it's hard. So I'm going to tell you a couple stories about me, but first of all, I'm going to give you some of the symptoms to look for if your company has not done layoffs or they haven't announced it. Some things to look at and pay attention to is the company communicating with you? Are they telling you what's happening with their cash flow and with their projects coming in? The pipeline of the business, how are the sellers doing? If that's all drying up, then things could look dark in a month or 3, which is a quarter, or 6. I get concerned if the pipeline's not filling up regularly, then 1 or 2 quarters from then, the people on the operations and implementation side could be in jeopardy. So keep an eye on the pipeline. More immediate things that companies do, number one is they cut costs. And here with the COVID-19, costs are already being cut because travel is limited, if not completely restricted. Conferences, external training is removed, so that saves some money. So there are some inherent cost savings that the companies are gaining because of their limited ability to take advantage of certain things that they'd spend money on. So that's a good sign. However, other areas that they do cost cutting could come in the form of salary reductions. Back at the turn of the century, actually it was right after 9/11, company that I worked for, they did a 10% across the board pay cut for everybody. And they said, we're not laying anybody off. We're going to do a mandatory 10% reduction. And they said, if things are not better in a quarter, we're going to lay off 10% of the company. And sadly, that's exactly what happened. So they gave back the 10% pay cut to the employees, and they let go 10% of the employees. And that was difficult. I had to comfort a couple friends of mine. 2 people on my team were directly impacted at that point. So reductions in salary could lead to rifts. Other things that companies are going to do is hiring freeze. That's actually one of the first things. So if you see a hiring freeze go into place, that's the first part to start to notice things are amiss. And then the cost cutting and some of the more drastic things companies do, and we've seen a lot of this right now, especially in the travel and transportation places, hotels and airlines, obviously in particular. What's called a furlough. They basically say to the employee, we want to keep you, but we can't afford you, so we're going to keep you on the books. You have access to your health care benefits, but you get zero salary. I've even seen it where companies ask employees to do a voluntary, where maybe it's a 25% furlough, where you only work 75% of the time and you take a 25% pay cut. Those are drastic measures. When you start to see furloughs, then you need to understand that there will be, if they're partial furloughs, then the RIFs, the reduction in force, sorry, it's a military term, a reduction in force, a RIF, a layoff, whatever you want to call it, that's when it will come. So I'm going to give a few examples. I actually have 4 key ones from me. Maybe I won't go into all of them. It does kind of get depressing. But I want you to realize you're not alone. I've been in business, been doing this for nearly 30 years. One of the times that I was laid off, I was working as a software marketer. I would go into Best Buys and CompUSA's in the mid-90s, and I would train the staff on how to use our company's products or the products of companies that hired us to teach people how to sell it. So you go into CompUSA, you want to buy something, antivirus, oh, here, this is a product. I teach them how to do it. Anyway, I was in Southern California at the time. I had customers in Nevada and Las Vegas, drove to Vegas, supported my stores, and then I was going to fly back to Utah for a corporate meeting, and it was before 9/11, and we had paper tickets, olden days, and I walked up to check in, and they told me, your plane ticket has been canceled. You need to call this individual if you know who that is. I said, sure. I walked over. I literally dropped a dime. I think it was a quarter at the time to make a phone call because it was before mobile phones. And my boss goes, yeah, we canceled your ticket because you're being let go. No severance. You can have $1,000. You're terminated immediately, and you can keep your laptop. And that was it. So I literally found out I lost my job because I went to check in for an airplane. I moved on. I had every job I get, I have to say this is very important. Every job I've had is better than the last. I either make more money and or I learn more and or I enjoy it more. So it has been, I'm blessed. It has been a wonderful trip up. There's been bumps in the road, and I'm sure that some of you are experiencing it now or will, sadly, and that's okay. Another time that I was laid off is I had been with the company for 8.5 years, and it was slowing down. We had done a divestiture. 3/4 of my assets or my team, things that I had reach into, were removed. I still had the biggest chunk, and it just wasn't enough. And I could tell from the lack of work, things weren't going well. Not a lot of business was coming in. I didn't have a lot to do, and I knew something was coming. So I started looking for a job at the time, and I wasn't busy enough at work, so I was looking for a job. And then sure enough, I ended up getting a phone call in late February, and it usually happens at the end of the month or the end of a quarter. So this is now March 27th, the end of Q1. This could start to impact some people very, very soon. So this is, I think, timely. Anyway, it was the end of the month. I got whacked. They let me go. They gave me severance, which was nice. And I knew it was coming so much that I literally had a job interview 2 hours later. I didn't get that job, but it certainly felt good and comforting knowing that I had something on the back burner if this fell through. I actually called my boss that night, the lady that let me go, and I said, it was a Friday, and I said, do not feel bad. I would have laid me off too. And I've been in that position. I've had to let people go. I've had to make the decision between not only employees, but friends. I mean, I had to let one person go, and there's anger, and there's frustration, and the decisions come down to a whole bunch of different things. It's difficult. It's hard on both sides. It is definitely harder when you're the one getting let go. There's a saying that a recession is when your neighbor loses his job, and it's a depression when you lose your job. That's not the economic term for it, but I think you get my point. So I'm running a little short on time. I'm rambling as I usually do. So I will just give one more, and that is when I worked at a very recent job. I was a solutions engineer for a company, and I was successful at it, and I was doing a very good job, and I was recruited to go work in a different arm, to work as a channel manager, a channel partner. And when I took the job on the channel side, my manager on the sales engineering side said, you're crazy. He said, there's job security here, there's comfort here, you know the technology, and going over there, it's a little risky. And I said, I get it, I understand, I enjoy it, I want to try this out. I tried it out for a few months, started to get quiet, I knew things were going sideways, my boss knew things were going sideways, we had a new CEO, Didn't think he was going to keep the department. And so I was looking for a job, and sure enough, we got whacked. And not only me, but my boss and my colleague, they just got rid of the whole division. It wasn't even a division, it was 3 people, but it was a small company. But long and short, again, I knew it was coming. I was bored. The CEO was not a big fan of having this group. My old manager told me it was a risky move. And the signs were there. The business wasn't there. It was quiet. The revenue wasn't there. We didn't have executive support. And an employee-employer relationship is very similar to an interpersonal relationship with a husband and a wife, or a parent and a child, if you will. And when you start to end the relationship, or you start to want to get away from them, there's emotional separation. It's quieter. You don't hear from them. You don't have things going on. And it happens the same thing in the workforce. And I noticed that at the last place that I was let go from. Again, I knew it was coming. I had been looking for a job while I was employed, and I was blessed to get picked up by my current company within, I think, 6 weeks of getting laid off. So I was fortunate. I had the severance. I had vacation pay that I had saved up, and I was able to land here and really not miss a beat. I was fortunate, though, and I was looking. And that's the key, and that's really where I want to conclude this discussion about layoffs and the job hunt. Look, always be looking. It's like in selling, always be closing, ABC. You always need to be looking. Doesn't mean you need to apply. It doesn't mean that you need to, be ready to jump ship. But you need to have an updated resume. You need to be looking at the marketplace and see what's out there. Set goals. How many jobs are you going to look for in a day? Or when you're actively looking, how many applications are you going to put in? I shoot for 3 solid job opportunities a week. Just 3 a week. And sometimes I have to look through 20, 30, 50, 80 job ops to see if there's one that I'm qualified for that I would take. Once you reach your goal, do something for yourself. Whatever your hobby is, go play a game, go for a run, make a phone call, reward yourself, watch some TV, watch a movie. But you have to stay positive. The first thing and the first person that you have an obligation to care for is yourself. Life has its ups and downs. This is just a moment in time. Whether you're worried about being laid off, or you've been laid off, or you're struggling, this is a point in time. Life is not all downhill and wonderful hunky-dory with sugar, honey, milk, and unicorns. It's rough sometimes, and right now is a rough time, but it's just a point in time, and you'll get through it. We'll get through it. It'll be okay. If you want to talk, shoot me a note. Again, cybergraybeard@gmail.com, or you can go to the website. I'm happy to go into more detail. I actually have more stories. But getting laid off at the airport is probably the best layoff story that I have. Anyway, stay strong, stay safe, stay healthy, and thanks a lot for listening. Take care.